and over 1 million unique visits a month. That was the great news. The bad news is it was very difficult to monetize. It was an ad-supported model, and we quickly realized that to be able to grow the kind of revenues, to get the kind of return on our equity, we needed to adapt our business model. And luckily, some brands were coming to us and asking us to open up our contest platform for them to use as a branded entertainment vehicle to connect to consumers. So they started paying us, and we started looking like an interactive agency where we were building these branded contests on their behalf. And we then went out and acquired some interactive agencies and merged it with the Famecast platform. And now it's a very credible, creative, interactive boutique called Exopolis and Famecast. And that's how it exists today. The point of taking you through all this is, if I look back and I think about, some of the times and the key ingredients of success, it always centered around a little bit of innovation and being quick and nimble to market and being reactionary to what's happening in the marketplace. There are a couple times where you write the business plan and 5 years later you look back and you say, we did exactly what we set out to do, but more often than not, you're going to take different paths along the way. And don't be afraid when that happens. You've got to react and be nimble and adjust accordingly to survive in this marketplace. So that's a little bit of backdrop of where I've been. Kind of boiled that down into a few key lessons that will be available on the OpenBeta website later to take a look at if you're interested. So if we can go to the next. I'll tell you what I'm really most excited about. We've been through a few years of doldrums and tough times, and the market landscape is ripe for innovation. It's a really exciting time. It feels like in the mid-90s with broadband happening. Now there's a whole new evolution of the marketplace centered around social media platforms becoming available and mainstream. Those platforms are providing an opportunity not only because we're educating the marketplace how to interact and communicate through social media, but it's also serving as an ecosystem to launch your own innovations through those platforms, as well as around the edges. Secondly, mobile platforms. They're open and they're pervasive. And for the first time, you can get access to the distribution vehicles, so you can innovate and tap into the distribution of these multiple mobile platforms, whether they be handhelds or tablets. Software as a service, the SaaS models lend itself as two powerful benefits. One is, as a startup, now your cost of entering the market is much, much less than if you had to invest in your server infrastructure and get it a hosting data center. Now you can pay by the drink, and it's flexible and grows as your business grows. And then secondly, if your model is such that you're delivering a service, you can also go to market with a SaaS-based model, so consumers are more likely to adopt your product and service. Content is available and cheap. It used to be that content was king because it was owned by just a few masters, and they controlled where we saw it and how we saw it. And now, as we all know, content is everywhere, and there's an opportunity to curate and package and distribute and monetize that content like never before. And finally, capital is increasingly available. I took a look at that today. We've been through a bit of a dry patch, but venture capital investments in Central Texas in 2010 was $350 million across 62 separate events. That compared to $214 million in 2009 across 55 events. Austin, ourselves, anticipate 4 IPOs this year versus 2 that took place in 2010, which were NetSpend and Convio. 1 took place in 2009, which was SolarWinds, and 0 took place in 2007 and 2008 combined. And nationally, 25 companies have filed, so a 25% increase from last year. So it's trending in the right direction. So capital is available. The next piece is the barriers to market are low. You can take that as a good news or bad news. I mean, the good news is today it costs about 1/10 of the capital to actually go from idea to market entry and actually to run your business. So what might have taken $5 million 5 to 10 years ago, you can do with $500,000 today. Product development is available and affordable and rapid to market for a lot of the reasons I just mentioned on the previous chart. The infrastructure is cheap. Distribution channels are available. It used to be you'd build a product, then it was like, how are we going to get it to the market and create customer awareness? And the big winner of that is it creates wealth, if you're successful, for the entrepreneurs and the management team, and it creates commerce and jobs for the local community. On the downside, because of the low market barriers, there's a lot of competitors and a lot of clutter, so you're having to reach through the clutter and capture the attention of the consumer, your target customer, because it is a fickle crowd and they get distracted easily by multiple solutions that are out there competing for their attention. Rapid technology cycles, low product life cycles, and a high degree of failure. If you talk to the premier capital venture firms, they know for every 12 investments they make, they're counting on one to be successful. And that's once it's made it to the filter to the blue chip VC firms. So imagine what the failure rate is in overall in the larger landscape. That's where it all comes down to the risk reward. So the key ingredients of success, it begins with a great idea that's unique and sustainable. Talent, you want to surround yourself and have the right talent around the table to execute. Capital, I would tell you, make sure that you've got the wherewithal to run your business for 12 to 18 months on the existing capital you have. Execution, and I translate execution into making sure you end up with a great product or service at the end of the day, because that's what you'll be measured against by the customer. And then last but certainly not least, make sure you have a monetization strategy on how you're going to have a path to profitability, or you've got a strategic platform that could result in an acquisition. So as it relates to the idea, just think about a vetting process when you're sitting around with your team or your partner and answer these questions. And you got to make sure that you can answer every one of these with conviction to really feel good about pulling the trigger and ensuring that you're going to build a successful startup. From a talent standpoint, I reference domain expertise and track record. And that doesn't mean that you haven't failed in the past, but learn from those failures so now that you're that much smarter as you move forward with a new venture and don't have those same pitfalls again. These are the functional elements that I would make sure you have in place with your company. This is what's different between two guys in a garage and a real company, and building functional expertise in the enterprise. Obviously, you're going to have a founder who has the idea and the passion and perseverance. That founder may or may not be right for the CEO job. The CEO is going to have the strategic vision and make the day-to-day priority decisions. The development organization, you want to have a development lead. Oftentimes now with social media, we do have a situation where the lead developer might in fact be the founder and the CEO. They have that kind of capacity. Sales and marketing, a different discipline, making sure you've got a go-to-market and a revenue capture plan that's going to be executed upon. And then the finance and legal is something that you can do outside. You don't necessarily have to have that part of your management team early on, but make sure you have those disciplines so the company is sound and secure. So capital, I mentioned, to be safe, you want to make sure you got 12 to 18 months of runway. There's 3 ways you can capitalize a business. You can bootstrap it out of your own pocket or with your friends and family. You can go to the angel networks or to the VC route. And obviously, as you move up that path, you give up more ownership and more control. One thing that's very interesting these days is a lot of these VCs have moved upstream and they're acting more like a private equity firm, where they're actually buying existing companies and consolidating in fragmented industry sectors and not doing as much venture capital investing, which has created a vacuum that is now allowing these angel networks to reappear, even though they had kind of disappeared over the last few years. So that's a real viable source for you. Execution, as I mentioned, great product, service, and culture is what you really want to aspire for here. It begins with a clear vision and goals that's set by the CEO, managed through objectives and incentives with the management team on a regular basis so that there's feedback and there's real metrics that you're measuring as a company moving forward. Rapid product and service delivery. The market moves fast, so you don't have the time, the luxury to go through a classical product development cycle. You got to get to market fast and nimble, and there's going to be trade-offs with quality versus feature and function, which I speak to later down in these bullets about being religious about the quality. But what I would say to you, my philosophy is when you go to market, you don't have to have 100% of it right. If you try to get 100% of it right, you're going to be late to market. Get 80% of it right. Then work rapidly to get that other 20% layered in. You'll have time, and you'll get customer feedback along the way. And then last is healthy workplace and employee retention. They are your talent. They are your assets. Treat them that way. And then the last item is monetization. How are you going to make money? You know, is this a hobby or is it a real business? And if you got investors, outside investors, you better take this seriously and make sure that you do have a path to profitability. The other vehicle, the other way to monetize it is to target and shape the company for an acquisition by a strategic partner. But I would tell you, that's a much riskier path to go. I would focus on making sure you can monetize the product that you're bringing to market now. And here are some examples of the different revenue streams that are traditional in the marketplace. And then you go through and you look at how many customers can we attract, what is the acquisition cost for each of those customers, how long will it take us to, in fact, achieve profitability, and do we have the capital to get there? Okay. And then finally, I'll just leave you with a story. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Mark Zuckerberg all died in a plane crash and went to meet their maker. The supreme deity turned to Joe and asked, "Tell what is important about yourself." Joe responded that he felt that the earth was the ultimate importance and that protecting the earth's ecological system was most important. God looked at Joe and said, "I like the way you think. Come and sit at my left hand." God then asked Barack Obama what he revered most. Obama responded that he felt people and their personal choices were most important. God responded, "I like the way you think. Come and sit at my right hand." God then turned to Mark Zuckerberg, who was staring at him indignantly. God asked, "What is your problem, Mark Zuckerberg?" Mark responded, "I think you are sitting in my chair." Thank you very much.